Hello everybody! Give me just a second to make sure I mute this video because I know it's going to freak out on me, like it does every time. But welcome everybody, welcome to the Pixelogic ZBrush live stream. I am Follygon, and we are going to get started here in just a second as soon as I open up this chat. But let me know if you guys can hear me, if you could type something in chat, that would be awesome. And boom. All right, cool. We should be good on that. Essentially what we're going to be doing tonight, this is probably our final time working on this character here. I think I've done 3, maybe 4 streams on this guy. Not a ton, but I was working on him a little bit more today, just kind of some extra little cleanup. But yeah, we'll get to that in just a second. Let me make sure everything's going out here. Cool. All right. Abasi, what's going on? Welcome to the stream. Glad you can hear me. Yeah, let me grab this guy. So I just did a quick little BPR render in ZBrush of this dude. I'm gonna fix my little document background there. And 1 second here while I fill in my materials. Some of my materials are a little spotty, which I've shown off this little poly paint glitch that happens every once in a while. But yes, tonight we're going to be working on this guy a little bit more. We're kind of in the finishing touches stages here. And yeah, I have some notes over on my other monitor of some things that I want to take a look at. I see like this weird little speck on this guy. I'm not sure what's going on right here. I'm not sure if you guys can see that. Hopefully it's not a dead pixel on my tablet here. That would be terrible. Tuatara, I butchered that one. Says morning. Well, for me it's the evening, but welcome all the same. What's going on there? Huh. I guess there's like a little piece of geo poking through there. Ever so slightly. We'll just push that in. So yeah, I was just spending a little bit of time cleaning up lots of little things in the silhouette. I think a lot of this is feeling pretty finished right now. We can go ahead and grab the concept open here. But there's, you know, a lot of kind of detailing work to do, some more work that I want to do with folds. You guys can see, I'm sure, that I've got a couple different areas for folds in here already. Some of this down here in the pants is just kind of quickly done, sketched in, not finished. Some of the stuff up here in this arm, a little bit more so. And kind of like a little bit of a middle ground over here for that arm. But yeah, been playing around with the pose, trying to get things to just feel a little bit more natural in 3D. He's definitely a tough one. He's very asymmetrical in terms of body shape, the whole mass. Just shifted off here to his right, our left, which is causing a lot of issues for making this kind of read well from every other angle. But, you know, I think he's feeling pretty good, like I said, and with a little bit more TLC here tonight during our stream, we can get this up to a really good level. Let's see. Real quick, I will, before we get started here, shout out my Gumroad, just gumroad.com/Follygon. If you guys are interested in checking out more of my stuff, brushes, courses, materials, base meshes, all the stuff that I use professionally, you guys can check all that out, gumroad.com/Follygon. People have been asking about my Mastering Appeal course. I am going to be opening up registration, fingers crossed if things all go to plan, in the next 2 weeks for sure. So be on the lookout for that. And then you guys can check out my YouTube channel. Just Google Follygon, you'll find all of it. All right, cool. Nice adaptation of the original image. Well, thank you. Appreciate that. Albatross with a 5 at the end. Get some leet speak in there. Appreciate it all the same. Oh, your last name is Butcher, ironically, because I said I butchered your name. That is pretty ironic. But I butcher everybody's name, so it's just kind of, I don't know. I get all sorts of crazy usernames in here. Well, anyway, the first thing I wanted to do, let me see here. There's definitely some big stuff. So right before I started the stream, I was playing around with doing some more posing with the hands and the fingers. You can see up here that I finally got this guy kind of pinching and grabbing the hat. One thing that I really like to do with hands, and you'll see illustrators do this a lot, 2D illustrators, is they'll use grouping to their advantage to kind of simplify the pose of a hand. Humans actually naturally do this. Have you ever seen like the two middle finger like connected kind of lazy hand pose? That's kind of one instance of that. In this case, I'm going to be grouping all 3 of these and maybe making that pinky a little bit more pinkies out, like fancy style. We'll see how it goes. And then down here with this hand, I want to bring in those end fingers up a little bit more to feel like it's gripping the bag a little bit more tightly. He's kind of got a lazy grip going on here, but if I can tighten that just a little bit, I think that'll feel more solid as compared to what I have right now. The other big thing that I wanted to do was maybe play around with offsetting the character's weight quite a bit, which I've already done a little bit. But yeah, that's what we're gonna start with, and then we'll kind of just move from there. So let's start with this hand up here and see what kind of changes we can make. I'm gonna drop this guy on my canvas up here, but to do that I need to turn off live Boolean, because live Boolean hates when you add stuff to your canvas. And I'm gonna package up one little Boolean that I had down there. So let's start with this hand, because I think it's gonna be the easier of the 2. Oh, and I didn't drop him up there. There you go. Hang out for a minute. All right, so let's grab just our hand and our fingernails and head on over into Transpose Master. There's obviously some kind of awkward stuff going on here with a few of these different fingers, so we'll be cleaning that up as well. And let me grab my chat back here. All right, so let's start grouping up these fingers. One thing that I really like doing in Transpose Master is using polygroups to your advantage, because while you're in Transpose Master, none of the polygroups will transfer. So I have some polygroups on these fingers outside of here, which, maybe you want those. That might be nice, but unfortunately you can't get them, so you kind of have to recreate them if you do have finger polygroups. But I actually don't. On the original hand, I just have polygroups around the fingernails, so that when I remesh my hand, it puts in a nice clean edge loop right around that area, which you can see. Makes it very nice for working on the mesh there. Here, though, I want all of these to be polygroups so that I can just grab them as quick little selections, which you will see in just a moment. Doing this little bit of pre-work ends up saving you a lot more work down the road. So we'll just do this really quick. I'm using the select lasso right now to make all of these selections. All right. So now we can start grouping up our fingers a little bit more. I think my hand is going to end up shrinking in width a little bit as I do this, which I am absolutely fine with. Let's do that first. A couple quick masks. And get in here with our transpose line. Shift that edge. And essentially just kind of piecemeal section these off, shift together, and repeat. Beautiful. All right. So just a little bit tighter in the hand as a whole. It's gonna help with grouping. And it was just a little bit too wide, I think. All right. And from here, let's see. Kind of want to straighten the pinky as I was mentioning. So I think we're gonna do that first. Show you a little trick actually here. If you have polygroups and you want to mask with your polygroups, you can actually shift your mask up and down your edge loops, or your polygons in general, by softening and sharpening your mask. Just because of the way control click softening works for masks. I'll show you the difference here real quick, if I can find the masking menu. So when you control click, people think that this is the blur mask operation down here. It's actually not. It's a little bit different. The blur mask button blurs the mask both directions. So if I blur that and then I sharpen the mask back up, it'll go back to where it was. But if I blur the mask by control clicking on my mesh, it will only blur it one direction, and then I can control alt click to sharpen that mask and essentially kind of shift my mask up or down my polygons, however I want to do it. So that's essentially what I've done there. And I'm going to use that to my advantage to just straighten out my finger ever so slightly. So lots of tips and tricks with masking for sure. I use masking in polygroups all the time, even if it's something temporary, like the polygroups that I've created here for these fingers. And let's go ahead and group up some of this a little more. You can see that it's causing a little bit of freak out over there. Diego, welcome. The most difficult for me is to polish the model. Any tips? Any tips on polishing your character? Well, I guess could you be a little more specific? There's just so much that goes into polishing your character that if there's a specific area or an image that you have that you want to share that I can look at. I typically am not a huge fan of like general advice because I feel like every situation is different. And I feel like being more specific is typically, a lot more helpful than just kind of trying to like fill in the blank for every single possibility. So if you got an image, I would love to take a look and maybe we can discuss more, or if you want to give me some more info to kind of go off of there. Absolutely. I think personally that polishing is actually the easiest part of the process. I think all the hard work is done in the beginning. So I guess if I were to give general advice, it would be to not rush ahead into the polishing stage because it's definitely very easy to get there and not have all your foundation done first, which is the most important part of your character. Where can I get the layout of your ZBrush? It's on my Gumroad, which is just gumroad.com/Follygon. I have my custom UI and brushes and everything else over there. But yes. My layout I don't think is too crazy different from the standard UI, but I get asked about it enough that I ended up putting it on there. Alright, so I'm still trying to group these a little bit more. I don't want to just, stick these together really harsh like this, because you can see it's starting to break my hand and my knuckle quite a bit. So I definitely want to kind of very slowly start to work these to be a little bit closer together. And they don't necessarily have to be touching, but I would prefer that they do. That's kind of the general point of grouping, is that you are taking something that's a little bit more complex, like fingers, and simplifying it by simplifying your silhouette mostly. It's the kind of the main thing there. It's got a little bit more of a silhouette break here on this finger. It's kind of got like Shrek fingers. I actually had the, I don't know if I would call it pleasure, but I had the opportunity to work on a Shrek and a Fiona model way back when I was working on some more life-size stuff. Not for the film, but for an amusement park. Got to work on Shrek, Fiona, and 3 of the, we called them drunkies, but they're dragon donkey babies, so we just called them dronkies. I think they were called dronkies, but we stuck with drunkies. And then 3 of the Shrek babies, which were kind of a nightmare. They were kind of creepy, to be honest. But Shrek was a lot of fun. That was an interesting character, and he had some very, very fat fingers. All right, so let's see how that's looking here. once we T-pose back, just so we can see the changes there. I'll give that a second to calculate. What's going on, Eric? Let me suck on those fingers. Go right ahead. I mean, I'll upload these fingers for you and you can go to town. Where can I download your workspace? Alexander, it's on my Gumroad, gumroad.com/Follygon. Shriek! Yes. Shrek is love. Shrek is ZBrush. Shrek is all. Yes, I knew it was you and not some random dude. Of course. No random dude would say such a ridiculous thing. Probably. Shubham. Shubham. I'm probably saying that perfectly. What's going on? Welcome. I need to do something else with these fingernails. This is the easier of the two hands as well. So I don't want to spend too much time on this. I think the only other major thing I wanted to do was try to clean up the bottom of my hand a little bit, which I don't think will be too crazy hard. Some of these pinches were like a little too sharp, so we want to soften some of them, and some of them are a little too soft, so we want to sharpen those. Amazing, right? This is what I do all day. I'm called a poly pusher. There's pixel pushers and poly pushers. I think mine's a little more fun. You get that extra dimension. Carl Creates, what's going on? Welcome. Follygon appeared. Follygon does kind of sound like a Pokemon, now that I think about it. That's not my intention, but... Whoa. Let's see here. Alright, we're good. But I do love Pokemon. I'm a huge Pokemon fan. I have not played a Pokemon game in quite a long time, though. I pretty much don't really know too many of them after the 2nd gen. I know a fair bit from the 3rd. Because I did end up borrowing, I think, my cousin's Ruby version, or maybe it was Emerald. I don't remember which one. I think it was Ruby. And I don't remember if I ever gave it back. I might have it somewhere. Borrowed, right? But yes, I've not played a Pokemon game in quite a while. I kind of want to try that new one that's coming out, Sword and Shield. But man, I gotta be careful with what games I pick, because they become a time sink real quick. Is this Dynamesh or subdivision levels? Or dynamic subdivision. These are subdivs on the fingers here. Most of this is subdivs on the character. Here. I think he's sideways. Yeah, he is. So most of it is subdivided right now. Most of it was Dynameshed at one point. Some of it is polymodeled and then given subdivision levels. I mean, it's really, you know, take your pick. Everything under the sun. Like, these were polymodeled in ZBrush and sculpted on and subdivided. Sculpted on very slightly. Just kind of like a smooth pass, I think, is all I did on those. The bag down here is all polymodeled with like a little bit of seam stuff to it. Some stuff still has dynamic subdivs, like my fingernails, my glasses, my eyebrows, these buttons on his vest, you know, so like I said, a little bit of everything in here. I use, you know, it just kind of depends on the situation. So if it's simple enough, I'll just polymodel it and keep it dynamically subdivided until I need it to be a little more dense later on, like my fingernails here. I'm gonna soften these knucks. Knucks kind of sounds like a curse word. I don't really like this this middle finger. I'm gonna group those up a little bit more, and that'll probably be the last thing that we do on this hand, and then we'll move on to the next one. Hands, huh? Hands are so much fun. I hate sculpting hands. Hands are so hard, even for these fat, chunky hands like these. A Follygon, yes, that's my IP. Don't take that. Follygon it is. The finish you give to the clothing. I can pull my cloth beyond the sketch stage. So for finishing clothing, where is my... Actually, later on I'll be doing some stuff with clothes, so I can maybe show you some of the stuff I did with this sleeve here. Where's the cuff for this thing? There it is. So like, this is this arm up here. Pretty much what I did with this, I can talk about the process very quickly. It was originally 3 different large chunks, the yellow, blue, and green. I sculpted them individually, just Dynamesh them all together, and used ZBrush with polygroups to kind of clean up the shape a little bit, like what you see here. And then for some of the folds, I actually, for this larger fold in the crease, because that one's a little bit tougher to deal with, I'll show you a technique later on in the stream tonight about how I did that, but I essentially used a curve mesh to insert some geometry and merge it into it later on. So I'll try to remind me later on once we get into the clothing, and I'll try to do that maybe on his pant legs down here. We shall see. Alright, real quick here, let's get these fingies. Fingies is my very technical and professional term. And also my IP, do not steal. Selic Cert, what's going on? Welcome. Glad to have you here. Semper, welcome back. How you doing? How goes it? And Laxlive, which also sounds like a Pokemon. Welcome. Everybody type in your Pokemon name into chat. I love your UI. Can I get it someplace? Is this becoming a thing? Who told you to come say this? It's on my Gumroad. You can just Google my Gumroad and you'll find it. I feel like somebody's telling everybody to come ask me where my UI is. I need this UI. I don't think it's, like I said, I don't think it's anything too crazy. All right, so I wanted to group those up just a tad more. And leave that pinky offset. Let's try to just a little bit more. You know, I don't know exactly what he's doing there. I could probably, now that I'm thinking about it, I'm gonna offset this one middle finger just a little here. So that feels a bit more natural. Still be grouped, but just not quite in line with the other finger. So something like that. That feels quite a bit more natural to me. And we're utilizing grouping, I think, in a pretty nice way. Awesome. Let's get out of here, out of T-pose. And maybe do a little bit of cleanup. I don't think it'll need much, and then we'll move on to the other hand. Can you get used gum from the road? You know what? With everything that's on Gumroad, I bet you could. You could get some of that ABC bubblegum. It's already been chewed. I haven't thought about that. Children's joke in a minute. You want some ABC bubblegum? I don't know if, for anybody that lives in the US, if that was a thing for you. That was weird. Alright, I'll leave that for now and maybe do a little extra cleanup later on, but I think it's probably fine for now. And then this hand down here, I want to get the fingers just gripping this bag a little bit more, more tightly. Specifically that last digit, I want it to curl up. I actually started a project for once in my life. Sorry, I missed your message there. Nice to do something outside of work. I'm assuming some mechs, so I'm looking forward to it. Post some stuff on Twitter, Eric, when you got something to show. How often... Oh, I just spit everywhere. That was beautiful. How often does your ZBrush crash when you export base mesh from other software such as Maya and working using Dynamesh? Mine crashes a lot. Shubham, which is the absolute correct way to say that. I would assume that you probably have some non-manifold geometry. You probably have some stuff that's not welded properly if Dynamesh is causing some crashes. Next time you import, go down under Tool Geometry, Modify Topology, and just click on, where is it? Weld Points. Try clicking that, and before you do that, press the D key or go into your dynamic subdivision level modifier here. Click on Dynamic. Try that and see if the geometry breaks apart. That's my guess as to what's happening. There are, really a lot of different issues that could be causing it, but I would say try the Weld Points button first and see if that helps you out. That's my guess. All right, let's do some stuff with this hand. Let's break it up. We'll head directly into Transpose Master here. And there's some other stuff that's kind of weird in my wrist, but I don't care because it's not seen, so. Mimus. I really hope that's how you say that, because that's an awesome name. Welcome, Mimus. How you doing? How can I make alpha maps clear and straight without any overlaps? Huh. That is a good question. I don't think I know what you mean. Clear and straight without any overlaps. Well, it depends how you're creating your alpha maps, I guess. If you're creating them in Photoshop or something, get higher resolution images for your alphas? Oh, overlaps. You mean tiling. I think that's what you mean. Tiling is the word that you're probably looking for, Design One. What I recommend is that just go on YouTube and type in Photoshop tileable textures tutorial, something like that. And I guarantee you'll find a quick little tutorial on how to use the filter. I think it's filter offset in Photoshop. I believe that's the correct thing that you want to look for. Try that out. I think that's what you're talking about. Maybe not. Let me know. Luckily, I have also used Photoshop a decent amount. Captain Callaway. Thank you so much, man. Yeah, I really like this character. He's a cool one. Louis Gadea is the original concept artist, so make sure you guys check out more of their work if you have not already on a previous stream. He's got some really cool concepts, and what else do I need to say? He's got some really cool concepts. Alright. I am just so good at rotating fingers to be nice and clean. I actually saw this cool little tutorial on ArtStation. Somebody posted an image of how to use a bend modifier to make finger bends more easily, and it's pretty interesting. I've never I might try it right now. If I remember correctly, it's a brush mod on the transpose line. It's probably under curve. I didn't know that you could actually mess with the curve for the transpose line. It actually makes sense because you can do it with just about everything else. I don't want to do it right now, though, because it'll mess up my transpose line, and then I'll have to restart ZBrush if I screwed up too much. But essentially, you get like a really nice tight curve here in your brush modifier curve menu. And it allows you to make some nicer, clean bends, specifically in areas like fingers and stuff. But for the most part, I typically don't care too much, because what I usually end up doing is just doing like some quick little pinching and resculpting, and it ends up not being a huge deal. But I remember struggling with that a lot when I was a little bit more new to sculpting, especially when you're trying to sculpt hands. Hands are just a pain in the butt, and I think, whoops, I think most of you know that. That might mess up later. The reason I do my finger bends this way is because you end up getting a softer open bend here on this side of the finger, the palm side. And then on the outside, it also does the same thing, but it's a lot easier to correct on the outside than it is on the inside. I'll show you once I'm done. So I just wanted to bend all of those a little bit more. I didn't really do them. I didn't want to see them all at the same time because I didn't really want them to be uniform. But now that we're at this point, we can head out of here and do a little bit of cleanup with some minor corrections here. With a very large move brush. And I pretty much want all of these grouped together. The two middle fingers I tried to group a little bit differently, but I couldn't exaggerate these fingers enough, so that might be something that we play around with right now. Essentially want the middle fingers. I'm going to get those touching, and then these two on the outside will be kind of their own thing. So yet again, utilizing some grouping here, hopefully, to our advantage. Just trying to get these to hit a little bit lower than these two middle ones. It might be. It might be. What might be? The mech. The mech. I'm gonna take my bet here, Eric, and say that it's a mech. Because I'm pretty sure I saw you tweet the other day that it was a mech. What do you prefer, Dynamesh subtools together or use remesh by union? Dynamesh, preferably. Preferably live Boolean, actually, just because you get a perfect merge. So the geometry is exactly the same. If you don't know what I mean, it's like a true Boolean. Dynamesh is also a Boolean, but it changes your geometry. I'm waving my fingers and hands around a lot. That's my Italian blood coming out. But yeah, I think Dynamesh is just, a lot of the time when I'm trying to merge stuff together, it's typically in the earlier stage of blocking something out, and it's supposed to be just a quick combination. And if it needs to be something a little bit more specific later on, that's when live Boolean can come in handy. So there's not really a place in my workflow where taking the time to use remesh by union is really super helpful for me personally. And that's just my workflow. I know Shane Olson, who I've been doing the sculpt off with. If you guys haven't seen, go check it out over on my YouTube channel. Past the Sculpt, that's what we called it. We've done 2 parts, so there's like 2 hours of us working for the first hour on one model, and then we swap them to each other and then continue sculpting on them. And we're going to do another one, but I know he's very busy, and I've been a little busy too, so we will hopefully get to that here soon. But yes, definitely check it out. It's been a lot of fun. He likes to use that remesh by union feature. I just haven't had enough time to probably play around with it, but I'm sure if I did, I'm sure I would probably like it. It's just a matter of really trying to find time to not only play with it, but also work it into your workflow, and that involves, a pretty drastic change in thinking for a lot of stuff. But yeah, I don't know. I think there's a lot of different ways to do just about everything in ZBrush, and it's just a matter of finding what works best for you. I don't think there's you know, one best way that you should do really anything. I think it's going to be different for a lot of people. I tweeted no such thing. I don't even have a Twitter. Well, I have a Twitter. Subai is the way you say that. Hello and welcome. Hope you're doing well. Some more cleanup on these fingers. So like I said, this is you know, a little soft bend in the fingers at first, and then go back through with a little pinch pass on the top, and then on the inner edge, now I can get in here and clean these up a little bit more. Actually, I want this too. So like I said, the softer bend here is typically a little bit nicer, which it is right now. I actually intentionally, I can load in the neutral version of these hands so you can see what they look like. But they originally had this real tight crease in here. And I don't remember why I did that. Because I don't see anything in the concept that would indicate something like that. But either way, a little bit of cleanup here and there. Just to get that feeling a bit nicer. Work on the offset of that crease so that these kind of line up with the knuckle. Kind of straight across from each other. And the other area here, it's a little bit, it's kind of getting stretched a little too much. A little more than I like, but we'll make do with what we got. All right, so the fingers there are a little bit rounded, so I'm going to just kind of flatten that knuckle out ever so slightly. Good old move brush. It's pretty much the go-to for just about everything. Don't really need much else other than that. All right, feeling a bit better. Definitely got some more offset going on there. And let me just look at this with everything on for a moment. All right, so we got a little bit of a better grip on the strap. I think the fingers still feel pretty awkward, specifically around the tips of the fingers. So there's some more stuff that we want to do there. Namely, the main thing right now that's kind of annoying me is that there's a little bit too much twist in the tips of the fingers, so they feel a bit awkward. And then the tips of the fingers feel pretty flat and symmetrical, like very boring. Over here, a little bit of the same thing going on. So let's fix that. Let's make our fingers less symmetrical. And essentially the way I'm going to do this is literally just taking a trim brush and smashing my finger a little bit. And I'm gonna do that on each one. Just right where that hit happens so that it starts to change direction a little bit. How do I want to do this? I wish you could, here's a ZBrush feature that I want. I want to be able to create temporary polygroups on something without going into Transpose Master. That's all right. So I'm essentially doing a quick little squash with my trim brush and then using the alternative smooth, which is using the shift key to activate your smooth brush and then letting go of the shift key and continue to smooth. That is the alternative smooth function, or one of them. go. Just kind of break up the shape a little bit there. Get that feeling a bit more visually interesting from the profile. I think the shape here could change quite a bit. I'm thinking, just because right now they're very parallel in the fingernails. So I'm thinking maybe as it goes out, it gets wider. That's kind of what my fingernails do, unless I'm like some kind of weird mutant. It's probably pretty normal. Someone say that it's pretty normal in chat, please. Someone say my fingers do that. Whoa. Pretty sure you have no fingers. I actually have very long fingers and also very long toes, which I got made fun of in school for. That's not true. Although I wish it was. That'd be a fantastic story. No, but I have fairly long fingers. I don't think I have pretty average length, or pretty average sized hands, but just a little bit abnormally long fingers, like a Slender Man. Alright, break that up a little bit more. Alright, so now I want these fingernails to be less even, less symmetrical. So to make something more visually interesting, one of the things that you can do is add taper to a shape. So essentially, take one part of it and make it smaller than another part. So like for the length of a finger, for instance, instead of keeping a finger the same length, or same width, let's say, all the way down the length of it, it gets smaller as it gets to the end. Or you could reverse that. For like a frog, for instance, a frog would have a finger that would go from thin to thick and have like a little bulbous tip on the end. So kind of the same idea here, but we want to kind of consider that for just about every shape that we create. And by just about, I mean for every shape that we create. It's one of those kind of fundamental things that can just make shapes a little bit more visually interesting. How to keep hard surface edges while using Dynamesh. You can't. You can't unless you split it up into separate objects. If what you're asking, if I understand what you're asking, the answer is that you cannot. Dynamesh changes your topology, and you cannot have a very hard edge through Dynamesh. What you can do, though, let me see. Let me grab a piece of geometry here. His twiggies, his legs. So here's a piece of geometry, a cylinder, in fact. If I subdivide this a bunch and Dynamesh this, there we go, it's Dynameshed. It no longer has this perfectly hard edge up here, though. You can see that Dynamesh has changed it. So what you can actually do is use a slice curve brush and slice there, and I have perspective on, so that's actually changing that, it's warping it. So let me turn perspective off, slice curve brush, hold Control and Shift, click up on your brushes and choose the slice curve brush. Then from there, you can delete your end caps if you want. You don't have to. I find it to be a little bit easier. But from here, I'll just go into ZRemesh, click on Keep Groups, and ZRemesh this cylinder. And you will see that it will put a nice clean edge loop up on the top little section of our cylinder, which is fun little trick that I use all the time for a lot of different things. But ZRemesher is taking its sweet time. I'm going to delete the end caps in the hope that that makes the ZRemesh go a little bit faster. When I export hard surface models from Maya and use Dynamesh, its edges also get smooth. Yes, Dynamesh, you'll probably need to increase the resolution of your Dynamesh or play around with using Sculptress Pro. I'm not sure why this ZRemesh is not calculating. It's kind of frozen, so I'm actually just going to delete this and I'll show it off later. If need be. All right. So I want to try making this go from a little bit more narrow to a little bit more thick and just see if I like that. I don't want the finger to get more narrow, just the fingernail. Yes, I like that shape quite a bit more. So let's continue to do that to all of these. I'm gonna do it to everything except for the thumb because well, actually, you know what? I might try it on the thumb. It looks like the thumb like tapers down into this really thin shape, but maybe it's the opposite. Maybe we can get this to work. Something a bit more wide. From the profile, it definitely looks that way though. And I'm hoping for most of these it'll just be a quick fix. But like I said, I think the change there is almost immediately apparent, even though this isn't what the geometry technically looks like. We're looking at a smooth and what's this called? Transpose master, so it's not quite the same. It'll be a little bit more clean once we get out of Transpose master, which we will do in a moment. I was thinking that I would need to make some really large-scale changes here to these fingers, but maybe not. Maybe we can get away with a little. Van Follygon, what's up, Doug? How you doing, man? Welcome back. That beard is absolutely not fiber mesh. I've never enjoyed working with fiber mesh personally. So no. Although that would be awesome. If I could have a superpower, it wouldn't be fiber mesh. It would just like, I want to be able to sculpt in real life, you know, like with clay or something. No, like that would be a cool superpower if you could like use 3D modeling in real life. There's this really cool animation short where this, I think it's a girl, buys like this little object that allows her to edit the polygons on her face, and she accidentally starts deleting like a few too many, and things quickly spiral out of control. If anybody knows the name of that or has a link to it, I would love to watch it again. It's been a long time since I've seen it, and I don't remember what it's called, but if anybody knows, shout it out in chat. It's really cool. I think I've tried to find it again, but with no luck. Phoenix says, hi, thank you for the great advice. Absolutely. And welcome. Hope you're doing well. This slice method will break my model if it was made of different subtools. Make sure that you are using the slice curve and not a trim or clip or anything else. Make sure that it's specifically a slice curve. Or you can use masking to create polygroups. There's a lot of different ways to create polygroups. I just suggested that one because I think it's the easiest to get like a really clean line with. But, you know, like I said earlier, general advice is typically bad advice, so if you have an image of what you're trying to do that you want to share in chat, I could probably get a little bit of a better picture. And I believe you used to be able to share images here in chat, links and stuff, so hopefully you still can. This isn't my channel, so I don't unfortunately have control over that, but go ahead and give it a try. And I will take a look. We're getting there. Getting some cleaner fingers. Some more visually interesting fingers. Some of this geometry is just getting real stretched. Oh, that's okay. We can remesh it later. And if you can't share images here for help, you can absolutely share images over on the ZBrush Discord. So go join up over there. And there's always some nice helpful people online willing to lend a hand. So that's probably a good place to post just in general. Yes, I'll just model it in Maya. There you go. Why are you trying to take something from Maya to ZBrush? Come on. I have not modeled anything in Maya in a bit. There's really only a couple things in the Z Modeler brush that I wish, maybe more than a couple, but for the most part, there's really only a couple things that I miss in terms of functionality in the Z Modeler brush. Like for instance, the ability to extrude an edge would be very nice. I know that's one that people ask about quite often. But I don't know how hard that would be to add something like that. It seems like pretty standard procedure, but I know that, you know, oftentimes, just because it sounds easy, it's not always the case from a developmental standpoint. Alright, just going to widen out these fingers ever so slightly, just a little bit more. I know this is probably incredibly boring, moving just a couple of verts ever so slightly, but this is how I do it. This is how I get hyper clean shapes. Gotta obsess. over even the little things. But that's why we spent so much time on the big things earlier on, so that when we got to this stage, we have most of the hard work done. Like I said, it looks like my hand's pretty broken, but can't see it, so I don't care. Alright, let's go up to that other hand. A couple more tweaks up there. The pose is feeling a lot better, in my opinion, from just about every angle. This gap feels a little too strong to me. Maybe not. That might be something that I mess with a little bit later. But we'll do a couple quick corrections to these fingers and then move on to the next thing, which, let me check my list. I have some like really quick fixes that I can do. Still need to merge his ears into his head. Let me see here. Need to do some stuff with the pockets. Pocket. And, yes. There's something I saw earlier. What I like to do is I'll take screenshots of my character and take it into like Photoshop or something and then do some quick drawovers. Even at this stage, it's something that I do multiple times. You know what, I was going to flatten that out, but I like that silhouette hit there. Maybe not. I'm just going to flatten this out a little bit so it's not convex, because it's not convex in the concept. That was something I added in earlier, I think during the last stream when we were or maybe 2 streams ago. We're doing a lot of stuff on the face then. Definitely a lot of stretching going on in that hat. I think it works. I don't know how else I could get it to work from our front angle there. Alright, let's make these a little bit more visually interesting and move on. Probably some stuff with the clothing. I'll show you guys a cool way of creating folds. Typically, you could just sculpt in a quick fold depending on what it is, but there are lots of different types of folds and variations of them. And most of the time people struggle with really large folds. I think it's really easy to tell when something is simulated. A lot of the time people can't sculpt large folds. So I'll show you guys some tricks for dealing with some of that. But I don't have like super large drapery or anything like that on this guy, so it's not super applicable, but I'll show off the technique all the same. And my chat is gone. Fred Marquis, what's up? How you doing, man? Welcome. All right. So just trying to get a bit more taper in our fingers so they're not so parallel and boring. And this is something, like I said, that I do on everything. So, for instance, if you are working on legs or arms, if they're parallel the whole way, if the width is the same the entire length of that object, it ends up feeling really boring. And with just a little bit of taper, it can make a world of difference. Raga, what's up? Welcome back. How are you doing? As well as everybody else that's joining us. I see that there's quite a bit more people here now, so welcome everybody. If you're new here, this is the Pixelogic ZBrush channel. My name is Ben, or Follygon, and I stream here every Tuesday. There's a lot of other people that stream here. Actually, after me tonight, the Z friends are getting back on for their 3-person stream, where I think one person streams on Twitch, one on YouTube, and one on Facebook. And they sculpt for a little bit and trade off their sculpts as they go. So it's pretty cool. Definitely stick around for that after I bounce out of here. I think it's a lot more visually interesting than what I'm doing right now, for sure. I cannot select this. Yes, I like to do all the boring stuff that ends up paying off much later. Ends up working out, though. It's not all sunshine and rainbows here in the character sculpting department. What's up, Nuck? How you doing? Alright, a little bit more cleanup here, like 5 more seconds, and then we will bounce over to some clothing for a little bit. Alright, let's take a look here. Alright, that'll do for now. We'll probably touch on those a little bit more later. But there we go, fingers feeling much better to me. Alright, so I wanted to show you guys some techniques here with some folds, because there's a lot that can go into a lot of different techniques for a lot of different types of folds. Down here, if I can grab my Sharp Soft brush, this is a brush that is kind of like a cross between a damn standard brush and a standard brush. It's like a little bit softer. Has a little bit nicer fall off, not quite as harsh. So you guys can kind of see the difference there. And I use that for folds quite often. I'll make the brush really large and kind of draw out my fold however I'm going to do that. And that's pretty straightforward. You just kind of need the finesse and know how to kind of create the fold that you're trying to do. And that's how I created this fold down here. Just a quick little sketch in on that. But the folds up here on the arms are quite a bit different. They involve using a curve brush. So I'll show you guys how I did that. And I will, let's see. I don't really have any place that I actually want to do this. So we'll just kind of do it as a little experiment. And let's do it on one of these pant legs, because maybe I can actually keep the fold that I create. Alright, so what we're going to do is duplicate our geometry, and I'm going to turn off my poly paint so it's a little bit easier to see while we do this. And I'm going to grab just a curve tube snap brush. It's a really simple brush, draws out a tube of geometry. And we're going to use this to create a fold. So essentially what you do is, for instance, let's see, is there anywhere specific that I want? Oh, you know what? I see an area that I want to fold. So for instance, I want to get like a little fold kind of around this area where there's this like crease between the body, or his little round crotch here, and the leg. So essentially what I'm going to do is just draw out my curve along that spot there. Decrease my draw size so we can get that to fit in there. And there are quite a few different things here. I'm going to redraw this because it's freaking out a little bit. There are quite a few different things here that we can do to make this shape a little bit closer to exactly what we're looking for. But we're not going to look at any of the fancy stuff. We're just going to do the curve as is. So we'll tap to select this or confirm it and delete our curve there. And then I just have that on there. This is why I duplicated my mesh, so that I can just select this and run a delete hidden function. And then you can just take this curve and start blending it in at the endpoints. And you can probably already see where this is starting to go. So I can use the dynamic smooth to get an idea of what that's going to look like. But the main thing I want to do is make this a little bit wider here on this side, and I want it to narrow down on the opposite side. So I'm going to use the move brush with backface masking, which is up under brush auto masking. And I'm just going to widen out this shape. So it goes from wide to narrow. So remember when I was talking about in the fingers how you want to look for taper in just about everything? Same thing in your folds. Yes, curve brushes are awesome. A lot of really cool stuff that you can do with them. In this case, I don't really see a lot of people doing this, and I think it's really powerful. So I try to show it off whenever I can. I'll probably make a more detailed tutorial on this over on my YouTube channel as to the more detailed functions that I was mentioning before. Because there's really a lot that you can do with curves in general. Here I'm more so just kind of using my move brush to manually get this into place. Alright. I think that works for the general shape in terms of width, but what I want to do is, whoops, not turn everything off. I want to make a little bit of an offset on this shape. I don't want it to be perfectly even. I'm just going to try something like that. I think that works pretty well for what I want. I just drew out a quick little line there on top. I'll start to blend this in. And when you're ready, you can go ahead and Dynamesh or live Boolean these together and start working with the geometry a little bit more. And things are getting a little messy here, so what I'll end up doing here is just getting rid of any preconceived topology that I have with a Dynamesh, and then run a ZBrush very, very low in order to get something a little bit more low poly. The menu you pop up with the backface option. How do you set it up? You can download my custom UI from my Gumroad, or you can go on YouTube and type in gumroad.com/Follygon. You can just download my UI if you want it. Or you can type in Follygon custom interface, and it's this very first video, how to create a custom pop-up menu in ZBrush. Here. I'll just Hello, I'm Follygon, and today shush. Copy link. Hopefully, I have the ability to post links in here, but there you go. Hopefully that went through. Why do you prefer the curve tool instead of just using a sharp, soft, straight away? You get a lot more control out of something like this. It's not that I prefer this way, it's that, you know, for stuff like larger folds, like for instance, I was showing off earlier up here on my arm. So this piece of geometry, like this fold here, it's a pretty specific shape, and it would be a little hard to go through and just kind of build that up with something like a standard brush. It's a lot easier when you have something split off and separated. Essentially what I always say is, when in doubt, split it out, meaning that if you're struggling to create something just by sculpting it all as one piece, try to break it down into more pieces. So that's kind of what the idea is here. So this is what the finished result looks like after you've merged in your geometry and blended it and faded it all together. This little fold right here was literally just 1 or 2 strokes with a, whoops, that's the wrong brush, with something like a dam standard or something like that. So really simple to go through and create something like that. And you know, I could build on that even more with something like my clay tubes if I want to, or you know, there's a million different ways to do everything. But this way you get quite a bit of control. And it is completely non-destructive, which is something that I really like to have in my workflows. And you can get something super specific this way. So this is going to flatten out a little bit more as it goes towards the front. I can see, you know, I don't have much to go off of, really just a couple lines there on the concept, but I can kind of see how that transitions on the leg over there and fades out a little bit. So what I'll do is I'll just trim that ever so slightly. Try to fade it in a little bit faster. I'm liking that a lot. So from here, all it would require is a Boolean of some kind. And you can do that through a lot of different ways. One way being Dynamesh, another way being live Boolean, which is a true Boolean. You will get some nice clean geometry that way, for sure, depending on what your original geometry looks like, of course. So I am going to do that. I'm going to use live Boolean. So I'll just toggle on live Boolean and click on Boolean, make Boolean mesh. I'll take just a few seconds here to calculate. And there we go. There it is. So now all we have to do from here is start to clean this up. We can start transitioning it nicely with some alternative smooth, holding the shift key, letting go of that, and then starting to smooth that together. You can see that because the geometry is of a different resolution here, the tessellation that occurs where those are combined, where it just kind of stitches everything together, is pretty dirty. So what we can do is we can remesh this to clean it up. Really, there's a lot of different options here. My preferred method with something like this would be to Z-remesh it really low and then project the form back. I'm looking at my geometry to see if there is anything here that I want to keep or get rid of or anything else. And I'm going to delete the cap there so that this remeshes a little bit more cleanly. And I have a lot of polygroups down here, so this is going to cause the remesher to freak out quite a bit. So I'm going to get rid of most of these. I do want to keep 1 or 2 of them though. And up here, just to force ZBrush to give me some clean geometry specifically through here, I'm going to add in a slice, essentially an edge loop. just on that area. Doesn't have to be perfect. And let's go ahead and do a little ZRemesh. Let's aim for maybe 0.5. I have keep groups turned on. Oh, you know what? My ZRemesher was not working earlier, so hopefully it works now. It was kind of freezing at about 25%. If that happens again, we'll just do a quick little restart on ZBrush because I want you guys to see the full process here. And no problem, Diego. Hopefully that that little tutorial will help you out. This is kind of oh, there we go. This time it's working. I was gonna say that's where it was freezing up before. All right. So we can see what that looks like smooth. Turn on our poly frame. And we'll just do a subdivide and a projection. And we'll do this probably about 3, maybe 4 times. Ooh, and we're not getting it all. It's fine, I'll resculpt that in. The distance there was too great for the projection. It's not a problem. Really easy to resculpt that up to make sure that the volume fits. And now when I project, it'll kind of fit. So now I have this. It's got some subdivs, so the geometry specifically in this connective area will be a little bit easier to blend. And I can use my trim, clay brush, you know, a lot of different things to play around with here to work on fading shapes together. But yes, especially when working on larger folds, this is extremely useful. I wanted to show off the technique here. I didn't really have, you know, too many large folds to play around with here on this character. So I just wanted to at least show off the technique for you guys. Something to think about next time you're sculpting folds. Let's grab our character here and append our leg. And I'll just apply the color and material here so you guys can see. And let's just hide. Whoops. Come here. Got some extra geometry turned on. All right, so there you go. There's the kind of more finished version of what that looks like. And now I can sit here and edit this even more if I want to kind of play with this new creased form that I have created and appended here. So if I want to maybe make that a little bit larger, we could do that now. If I wanted to soften it, blend it out, you know, it's really simple for me to do something like that now. But yeah, that's basically the entire process. From here, it's just, you know, polish, clean up, get it exactly the way you want it. But I am happy enough with it now that I could, you know, move on to something else for a little bit and maybe return to it a bit later. Let's turn off our extra geometry that we created to make that Boolean. But you could obviously save those out or put them in a folder for later. I am going to get rid of that extra leg here. Uh-oh. I might have reconstructed one too many times there. Hopefully we don't crash. I think it'll probably be okay. No problem. Yeah, it's a fun technique. I like to do that with, you know, not just folds, but like I said, quite a few different things. Oh no. I'm scared to let this go because I don't know when the last quick save was. You feel like bad luck? You just join in and watch it crash. No, it's fine, it's fine. It'll do it. We'll give it like a few more seconds here. Came in and it froze. That's alright. That's not your fault. It happens. Happens to the best of us. One thing I wanted to do is mess with the width of this guy's legs and then do some more stuff with his pockets too. His pockets feel, whoops, very, I didn't mean to click. His pockets feel very stuck on in the concept. We'll give this just a little bit longer. Like I said, I don't really think we've lost anything too major. We'll just close it. So unfortunately, when you get that kind of crash, because it's in the middle of calculating, it's not going to do a quick save. It's so bright. So we'll have to rely on our last quick save. I don't want to sit there and wait on that forever here on the stream though, so we'll just close it off, and I don't think we lost anything really that important. These recovered files are from quite a while ago, so I think this quick save is going to be the most recent. Alright, so pockets. So yeah, we lost the change there on the pant leg. Like I said, no worries. We got to show off the technique. That was the important thing. I can redo that later. Redo a little fold. It's not going to be that hard. And I wanted to look at... let me grab my reference here. So I wanted to look at making the legs feel a little less wide. And I think I might just scale up. Maybe not. This one is so much wider than this one. I think it's more of a perspective thing. So I might make the legs a little bit wider. I'll play around with that. And then maybe just kind of scoot them in a little bit closer together as well. We shall see. Yes, my eyes! When I'm sitting this close to my monitor and it turns all white like that, especially when it's dark in my room or if it's night out, it's blinding. It's terrible. The character looks so cuddly. I'll take that as a compliment, thanks. Welcome, Baxter. Our Baxter, how you doing? I believe. No, you didn't believe hard enough. Obviously. Gotta believe harder, or else you won't get your quick saves. Anyone here have any other people I should learn from, other than you, of course? I mean, there's a ton of awesome creators here on the Pixelogic channel. Like I was saying earlier, right after I get done streaming, there are the Z Friends coming online. That's where 3 people stream at once here on the channel, and it's pretty crazy. I'm going to be hanging out and watching. You guys should as well. I think it starts at, what would that be? So 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 Eastern, which is my time. So what do I want to do with these pockets? Anybody have any ideas for our pockets? I could just mesh them in and start adding some seams on them, kind of like what I did with this bag over here. Pretty simple bag, pretty simple shapes, you know, just kind of a trapezoid. I didn't do too much else on that since the last stream, other than adding in pretty much just like the fine details, the stitches, the seams, that kind of stuff, which would be fun to show those techniques, which I don't mind doing. Let's see, let's turn off our bag so it's not in the way, and play around with these for a little bit. Mad thick, that's right. It's all about the thickness. And I think you're missing a C on that thick. This is a triple C thick boy. Need to get back into ZBrush. Heck yeah. Don't learn from anyone ever. Never heard better advice. YJ says, if you have time, could you show a little bit of how the topological button works? I tried different ways. It just seems like nothing happened or changed. I believe you're talking about the topological masking button. It's in auto masking. If you're looking at my custom UI, I have it here. I can show you exactly what it does. Here. So topological refers to topology. Or I'll toggle this on. This is located under brush, masking, or no, wait, yeah, auto masking, sorry, not masking, auto masking, topological. So it's a masking feature. Essentially what it does, topological referring to topology, if I turn that on with, say, like my move brush, and I go to move one of these pieces of geometry, it will only move one of them, even though this is in the area of effect, even though all of these are within the area of effect of the brush. So whatever I click first, if I toggle that off, all of them will be affected by my brush. So because these are separate topological pieces of geometry, polygon islands, subtools, whatever you want to call them, they're not separate subtools, they're all in one subtool. They're all different objects though, not connected. Therefore, topological will work on those. So that's what that does. As a CG pro, whoa, throwing around some pro status here. As a mediocre artist, I have to agree. Learning's for chumps. Never learn anything. I'm secretly telling you this so that I can continue to get better and progress past everybody. Alright, so we're going to do some stuff with these pockets. I'm going to turn off just some extra geometry that's kind of in the way. And play around with, I don't know, trying to make these feel a little bit more integrated, which is a word that I like to throw around sometimes. And possibly add some additional form to these pants, because I really just have some like sketched in lines here. So let's see what kind of reference we can find. What kind of pants do we want to look up? What are the corduroy? I don't know how to spell corduroy, but we can maybe listen to some pants on the ground as well. Pants reference, sure. Let's look up some pants. What I actually like to do a lot is find some sewing patterns to figure out where some seams are. I find that to be very helpful. Something kind of like this, not exactly like that. More so... You can typically find some of these on the Google. Well, something like this. This is very covered in Japanese, so... And too much kanji for me to be able to read it. There you go, something like this, something along these lines. But that's obviously not what we want. I more so just want to look up some pants. Some khaki pants. Something simple. Well, that's a great reference right there. Let's see. Preferably not with a person attached, because it's a little bit easier for me to see. There you go, something like that. And I've done a number of pants in my day, but I just want to look at the pockets. His pockets are, you know, maybe we could get some like seams running down the pant leg there. I kind of want to like use these lines to do something. Or maybe just insert some geometry here. I don't really want to sculpt more than you know what is actually on the character here, so I think I'm just going to play around with trying to give these pockets a little bit of depth. And then we can kind of go from there. We'll start with that. Like I said, I haven't really done too much with these because there's not really a ton to go off of. And I don't really particularly want to add anything to the concept unless I feel like it adds something to the design. But as you can see here, we're starting to get a little bit of that kind of like pocket feeling. I'm trying to, ooh, if my pen works, get some more depth in there. See how that feels. And this is going to work the exact same way that I made the fold on the pant leg, if you guys were around for that. So I'll just be, you know, either combining this with line Boolean later, or, you know, whatever. Dynamesh, you know, it doesn't really matter. As long as it's a clean form, I don't really care. And then we can add some secondary shapes and some folds and stitches and everything else. It moves the whole tool like Transpose or only singular vertices. No, it doesn't move it like Transpose. I was just using the move brush as an example. It just affects whatever brush you're using that has topological masking turned on. It will only affect that. So here, merge visible. Don't crash, please. Okay, there. So here's all my geometry. If I grab my clay brush and turn on Topological and sculpt on the face here. Oh, that's laggy. Sculpt on the face. Very laggy. There's too many things here, so. See if it'll work. Oh man. Why is this so laggy? Dynamic on? Shouldn't be this laggy. Maybe I can just use a couple pieces up here. This shouldn't lag. Okay, so you can see I have Topological turned on, and I'm just using my clay brush. As I sculpt on my face, it doesn't affect my ear, or it doesn't affect my glasses, it doesn't affect my eyeball, it doesn't affect any of this, simply because I am only affecting the first piece of geometry that I touch with that. But if I turn that off, you can see here that now it starts sculpting on everything, including the eyeball, up here on the hat, everything. So that is what Topological does. And that is beautiful. Great change. I'll just transfer that over right now. All right, where were we? Pockets. Pockets ahoy. Teaching is the best way to learn. Yes, if you are completely new, just start teaching other people. This is my recommendation. Work pants. Yeah, I'm not super particular about grabbing some hyper detailed pants reference here, so I more so just wanted to look at the pockets and maybe get an idea for some seams, but really that's about it. And I have some cool seam brushes, but I don't know. Let's look at that bag a little bit more closely. Actually, here, I'll show you guys something really cool that I played around with just recently. So I'll subdivide this geometry a couple times, just enough to get it smooth. My pen keeps like desyncing from my tablet and not working. Not sure why. But what we're gonna do from here is grab. You guys don't have this brush probably, but it's a JRO Tools brush. He's a dude on Gumroad that sells a bunch of stuff. Actually, he's a dude that has a Gumroad. and a bunch of cool seam brushes. I'm going to grab this one because I was just using it earlier, and I'm going to turn on Sculptress Pro and show you guys how you can use Sculptress Pro to add seams to your objects. Let me do a quick test here. Have to get rid of subdivision levels, but actually that wasn't too bad there in terms of resolution, so I'm not super beat up about that. Let's try instead maybe just doing this. Yeah, that's actually really nice. I think this resolution is probably fine, but literally just for the demonstration of showing this off, I'll duplicate this. All right, so here we have this piece of geometry. I'll delete the lower subdivs on it, just so I can show this off. You have a seam brush that you like playing around with, but oh no, your resolution, it's not giving you exactly what you want. So we'll just activate Sculptress Pro and go into our preferences. Because I'm streaming, this might not go super great, but up in memory, I'm gonna set Sculptress Pro max polys to 10. And then under brush, this is the important part of this, under modifiers, sorry, not modifiers, under Sculptress Pro, we'll turn off use global and set the subdivide size to, come back please. My mouse moved on its own. I'll set this to like 0.1. I actually had this a little bit lower than that earlier, but this should probably be enough for this. But there we go. So you can see that my, if you watch this number at the top of the screen, the active points, you'll see that number start to go up there as I continue sculpting. So see, we're at 1 million, 1.6, 1.7, all the way up. And then it just lowered it a little bit. But if I turn on polyframe, you can see that the geometry is dynamically being like tessellated in these areas to create some more polys, which is really cool, in my opinion. A lot of cool stuff that you can do with this, with Sculptress Pro. But you can sit here and sculpt up and get, you know, as high of a resolution as you want to start, you know, creating your seams however you want to do this. I was just kind of playing around with this brush. Let's see. So we're at 40,000 polys. My only warning with this is that it ends up destroying poly counts really fast. So if you end up using something like this, you typically want to decimate the geometry after you're done doing that. And it's really easy to just decimate something and still retain, you know, the same amount of form without any issues. But yeah, that's it. That's all I wanted to show you guys with the seams and kind of playing around with those. This is probably something I wouldn't do until I merged these pockets down so that I could kind of smooth out, clean up this transition, and then start to get the seam on there. I would also use a different seam brush. I just grabbed this one because I knew it worked well with this technique. I haven't played around with too many other ones, but I'm sure they would work just as fine. But yeah, that's it. That's what I wanted to show you guys there. So lots of cool, fun Folly tips today. Boom. All right. I think I'm going to merge those pockets into my pants now and do exactly that now that we have some ideas for some next steps. I'll probably just try to make these a little bit deeper. And maybe... I don't really like the transition of the pants into the shirt right now. It feels very, very linear and boring. I'll probably get some kind of secondary folds on the shirt, just to make that a little bit more visually interesting. I don't want to lose the silhouette, mostly though, so I won't do, you know, some super strong silhouette breaks like what we have in the pant legs. But for the most part, I just want to transition these pants in, or these pants, so that I can Boolean them together and get that feeling really nice. Every time I learn something, I force my girlfriend to let me teach her. Hey, I just learned this cool thing. Let me show it to you. It's a good way to do it. I'm into it. It's good for moving things apart that are close together, like lips, fingers, and toes. Yes, absolutely. It absolutely is. I typically end up just using masking to do stuff like that, but it's also very applicable there for topological, which is what you're referring to there, I believe. Art of Bella, sorry I missed your message there, but welcome. Hope you're doing well. I want more depth here in the pocket. It's just not giving me what I want. Might just change that original shape. We'll see. Let's turn on live Boolean. Click on Boolean, make Boolean mesh. Give that a second to calculate. And this is something that just happens from time to time. So I didn't have any subdivision levels on my pants. So I'm kind of glad this happened. So you guys can see all the weird tessellation happening there. That's because this is so low poly and the pockets are so ridiculously high poly, comparatively. So I will, what you pretty much always want to do is check down here, dynamic, toggle that off, and then we'll just subdivide, add some quick little subdivs there. Just get that to about the same level. This time it should work flawlessly. Give it one more try here. There we go. So there's that. It's kind of stitched in there. I tried to make the poly counts fairly similar. Ooh, we have Sculptress Pro mode still on, so it started to tessellate that geometry. That is not what I wanted. So let me turn that off. And I just wanted to start to soften this connection a little bit just to see how clean this can get just really quickly here. And it looks like the geometry is not super similar in terms of level there of resolution. So I'll do the same thing that we did in our pants earlier, which is going to be remeshing them to fit within that same realm. Let me make these separate poly groups though first. So just a few different poly groups there. I'll make that a different color. So this should Z-remesh a little bit more clean as long as we turn on keep groups. And keep groups, there we go. Let's do 3K. Around there, that should work just fine. Louis Gadea actually works with me. That's hilarious, Eric. Well, tell him I said hi, and I'm working on one of his concepts. He or she, I guess. All right, let's see. Feels pretty good. Let's do some quick projections here. And luckily, we can project poly paint with projection in ZBrush, which is very nice. But on solid colors, it doesn't look like it's doing it too much here. It's a very subtle effect, but you'll actually get, there's like a little margin of error in projected colors. So if you end up projecting something and just want the solid color, what I recommend doing is going back and just sampling that object's color with the C key and then going back and reapplying that. Like I said, it's very subtle and I'm actually not seeing it here. It's a lot more visible on lighter objects, but whatever works, just to make sure for my own sanity. Okay, let me go ahead and append that. Back to our character. Oh, with the newest version of ZBrush, you actually don't need to use that live Boolean button anymore in here. You can actually do live Booleans within folders, and then you don't have to append it back, which is really nice. I don't really mind doing that, but within a folder, if you click on the little gear icon, you can click this Boolean folder option here, and it will Boolean everything within that folder, which is amazing. And it will just directly append it right below that folder, which is very nice. I'm a huge fan of that feature. I think it's a really nice addition. All right. So there we go. We got our pants with our pockets merged onto them, and we also have subdivs on this, which is nice because subdivs are just nice to have for a lot of different reasons. In this case, I'm going to use it to kind of soften the transition here between the pocket and the pant leg, or pant disc, hemisphere. Hemisphere. That sounds like a good name for this guy's butt. A hemisphere. So we're just gonna soften that a little bit here, and then maybe play around with some seams. I typically don't like to do seam work until I'm very confident that my shape is finished. I'm seeing like one kind of major fold that we could do here that we might be able to just do with like a quick brush stroke or two. So I mentioned, and I used the technique that we looked at earlier for kind of combining shapes for folds, and I think that's very helpful in terms of control and just working with your shapes, and I hope that a lot of you have found that helpful. But you know, if you have the ability and you're confident in your control over your form, I say, you know, a lot of the time just kind of sculpt it right on top if you can, which is what I am doing right now. The geometry is a little stretched in this area. There's, oh my god, there's 5 or 3, I can't count, 3 or 4 stars there, which is not something that I enjoy. Alright, I want to get that a little bit tighter. Whoops, up against the leg. Typically for this kind of thing, I like to exaggerate a little bit and then kind of knock it back after that. So I think this feels just a little too extreme, a little bit too strong. Play with this a little bit longer here. It's not quite there yet. So the problem with sculpting this way is that it is unfortunately, you know, destructive unless you're maybe working with something like layers. I don't really like working with layers in ZBrush. I think they kind of slow down your process and they just kind of get in the way, and I find that they're not really necessary a lot of the time. Especially when all of your subtools have undos on them individually, which is very nice. Very awesome feature in ZBrush that I love. And quick saves will store those if you need them to. So there's not, you know, a ton of reason to use layers on, you know, like quick little things like this. But I think one place where layers really shine is in texturing, like tertiary details. So you can like really paint on a texture really hard and then start to knock it back with your layer or with a morph target, which is a pretty cool function as well inside ZBrush. Alright, we just need to flatten this out and transition it a little bit faster based on what I'm seeing. So I'll start to trim that out. Unfortunately, the geometry here isn't cooperating just because of all those stars, so I'm doing what I can with what I got, but it's not being my friend. Whoops. So we can shift our light around, which is up in your, of course, light menu up here. I have that down here in my custom UI, just so I can see a little bit better, get an idea of that shape, something like that. I think that'll work. And let's see. I feel like honestly you could make this really wide block here, like his zipper or something like that. I don't know if that would feel really off. It might feel a little too strong. How much time we got here? We got like 15 minutes left. And I already showed you guys the seam stuff. So I'd prefer to do something a little bit different here. I don't know. I guess, does anybody have any questions before I go? Because like I said, there's only 15 minutes or so left. Let me know in chat, and maybe we can look at that. Let me see here. Let me look at my notes real quick to see what other big thing I wanted to try. There was a couple things in the silhouette that I don't think will be too crazy hard to fix real quick. But I'll start doing that just a little bit here while you guys have time to ask any questions. Or if you want me to show off something specific. It doesn't have to be about this character, it can be about anything. Anything. Oh, I remember what I wanted to do. I wanted to play around with moving the legs a little bit closer together or making them a little bit larger. Maybe a combination of the two. Cannot see my browser tab. Noticing a couple things coming down from this finger. I really like this nice clean line in the concept that comes from the tip of the pinky and wraps all the way down to the elbow. And I kind of want to get that back in. I had it earlier. I had a really nice curve kind of flowing down through there, and I've pretty much lost it now. But I will wait to do that so that I can look at making our legs a little bit larger and closer together. All right. So I'm going to scale these up individually and just kind of eyeball it. There are a couple different ways you can scale things up in ZBrush. Local symmetry can really be your friend with a lot of this stuff. A deformation inflate could work, but because these have end caps on them, it'll cause it to inflate in the wrong direction, which I really don't want. So instead, what we'll do is we'll just kind of do this one at a time, ever so slightly, daily and nightly. Alright, so not a huge change there. Do the same thing over here on the other leg, and then I want to try scooting these legs closer together, but what ends up happening, and I've played with this quite a bit, a lot of the time in 2D concepts, there is a trade-off. Whether you know, there's a lot of different areas where that can happen. It can happen in the pose. It can happen in, you know, the basic form that you're just trying to create. There are a lot of different ways that it can not work out in your favor, essentially, when you're trying to translate something to 3D. Some things just aren't possible. And that is definitely the case on this character in a few different areas. One of those areas where that is the case is these legs, trying to make these read really well from not just the front view, but also the profile and everything else here. The Transpose line does have additional features over the gizmo, but the 3D gizmo also has additional features over the Transpose line. There's a little bit of trade-off with each. The Transpose line has a lot of, like, I call them hidden features because it's not like a button that you can press like on the 3D gizmo where you can go in and select your deformer. It's more of stuff that you have to know how to use or read the documentation on. But to save you some time, I have, over on my YouTube channel, created a tutorial on almost every single feature except for, like, no, I think I do cover every single like little hidden transpose line functionality. It's over on my YouTube channel, or just YouTube search Follygon transpose line and you'll find it. But yeah, there's a lot. There's a lot of different little things that you can do with it. Alright, so I can scoot those closer together and get that feeling a bit better in terms of distance from the front view. Yay, that's great. From the profile, does this... See, it starts to feel like, especially from the back view, it starts to feel like this leg is now coming out, like, right in the middle of his body. And I'm not, like, a huge fan of that. Let's see what it looks like with the color and everything else on it. So this is the stance before, a little bit more wide. What I could try to do is maybe just get a little bit more twist in the body, in the hips. That might kind of help with that. That's really about it, though. Other than straight up changing the shape, there's not much else we can do there. Unfortunately, my pants are at the very bottom of this list, so I have to wait for that to run through and calculate each one of these subtools. There's like a little trick that you can do with Transpose Master that as it goes back and recalculates all your subtools, you can actually pause it a little early and make it stop calculating if you don't have any changes. It's going through all of these right now and making, because it doesn't have any way to know that I didn't make any changes to those objects, so it's kind of running through and checking. Alright, so I wanted to see what that leg looked like with the positional shift. I think it feels most awkward from the back view there, which is kind of the trade-off, but I think it definitely feels more accurate. Yeah, it's more accurately placed for sure. But these are kind of the trade-offs that you have to deal with. Like I said, there's other ways we can get around this, maybe by offsetting this even more towards the back, like just sliding that back a little more. There's that. Another idea I had was to rotate these, if I can grab it. So the other idea I had was that I would just rotate from the center point. So this would essentially make the legs feel like they're closer together from this view, but they're, you know, technically not. It's just that we're looking at this kind of like a 3/4 view. This leg still feels really awkward to me. Something that I'll have to play with. And it might seem like such a little thing, but this is something that I have to think about and consider on like literally every part here. There's a lot to consider when translating 2D to 3D. Alright, I like the position of this leg, so I don't really want to change that. Probably aim for something a little bit in the middle. Try to make like a little trade-off there. But I won't let that calculate because I think that'll take a little bit too long here. And I think we're at time here. So I think that's where I will leave off for our stream here. Thank you everybody for coming and hanging out with me today. I'll be here same time, same place next Tuesday. Streaming here on the Pixelogic ZBrush channel. Or if you guys want to check out my stuff on the in-between, you guys can of course check out my YouTube channel, which is just youtube.com/Follygon. If you guys want to check out more of my more organized stuff, let's say, you guys can check out my Gumroad for my courses, brushes, materials, base meshes, everything. Gumroad.com/Follygon. Some people were asking about the Mastering Appeal course. I have that coming out, or opening, I should say, again for registration, if everything goes as planned, in about 2 weeks or so. Follow me on my YouTube channel or on Twitter or whatever if you guys want to know when that goes live. But yeah, I think that's where I'll leave us off. Again, thank you guys for coming and hanging out, and hope to see you next Tuesday when I stream again. All right, see you guys.